This message is not for everyone. And if that sentence made you pause, even for a brief moment, that hesitation matters more than you realize. In a world flooded with noise, distractions, and endless content competing for your attention, something led you here. Not curiosity alone, not coincidence. There are messages people hear and forget within seconds, and there are messages that feel uncomfortably personal, as if they were waiting for you long before you arrived. This is one of those messages. Not because it flatters you, but because it challenges something deep within you that has likely been restless for years. There are moments in life when a person feels slightly out of place, as if they are living in the wrong tempo of the world around them. You may have experienced this without ever finding the words to explain it, a sense that your thoughts go deeper than most conversations allow. A feeling that your life carries a weight that others don't seem to notice or understand. Many people ignore that feeling. Some suppress it. Others try to outrun it through noise, success, or constant motion. But a few stop and listen. If you are here, still listening, that already sets you apart. Throughout history, the idea of being chosen has often been misunderstood. People imagine status, privilege, or superiority. But the truth is far less comfortable. Those who are chosen are rarely the most celebrated in the beginning. More often, they are the most tested. They are shaped quietly, away from applause, through confusion, isolation, and inattention. They sense early on that their lives are not meant to be ordinary, yet they are given no clear map to explain why. This tension creates an internal pressure that never fully goes away. It waits, it matures, it prepares. You may have noticed that some people seem perfectly at ease moving with the flow of the world as it is. They adapt easily, accept surface answers, and rarely question deeper meaning. Others cannot do that, no matter how hard they try. They question systems, beliefs, and even themselves. They feel drawn to purpose rather than comfort, even when they cannot define what that purpose is. This difference is not random. It is not a personality quirk. It is often the earliest sign of a calling that has not yet revealed its shape. If you are honest with yourself, there have likely been seasons where you felt misunderstood. Not because you failed to explain yourself, but because others could not hear what you were saying. You may have learned early to stay quiet, to observe rather than speak, to carry thoughts inward because expressing them felt pointless. Over time, this creates a sense of separation, a quiet loneliness that exists even when surrounded by people. Many chosen ones mistake this feeling for weakness or social failure, never realizing it is part of a much deeper preparation. This message is not here to label you, convince you, or promise you something extraordinary. Its purpose is simpler and far more unsettling. It is meant to hold up a mirror, because long before a mission becomes clear, there is recognition of patterns in your life that never seemed random, recognition of struggles that shaped you instead of breaking you, recognition of a persistent inner voice that refuses to let you settle for a life without meaning. These signs rarely arrive all at once. They reveal themselves slowly over years, sometimes decades. There is a reason some messages reach you at very specific moments in your life. Not when things are easy, but when questions begin to surface, when certainty fades, when comfort loses its appeal. These moments are thresholds. They mark the transition between living unconsciously and beginning to ask why you are here at all. Many people reach this point and turn back, choosing distraction over depth. Others step forward, even without knowing what awaits them. That step is never loud. It is internal, and it changes everything. As we move forward, what you are about to hear may resonate in unexpected ways. Some parts may feel familiar, almost uncomfortably so. Others may challenge beliefs you have held for a long time. That is intentional. This journey is not about affirmation alone, but alignment. Before understanding the different types of chosen ones, it is necessary to understand why they exist at all. Because no calling emerges without context, no mission appears without preparation, and no chosen one begins their journey fully aware of what they are becoming. So before we go any further, consider this. If this message truly was not meant for you, you would have left already. The fact that you are still here suggests that something within you recognizes what your mind has not yet fully accepted. This is not the conclusion, it is the beginning. And what comes next will begin to explain why certain lives are shaped differently, and why some people are quietly prepared for missions far greater than they ever expected. Every great shift in history begins quietly. Long before change becomes visible, before movements are named or moments are remembered, preparation is already underway. God does not act randomly, and neither does history unfold without intention. When the world reaches a point where transformation is necessary, when truth is forgotten, when people drift, when systems decay, God responds not first with events, but with people. He sends chosen ones. This pattern appears again and again across time. Not as myth, not as coincidence, but as a consistent principle. Before nations are restored, individuals are shaped. Before messages are spoken publicly, they are planted privately in the hearts of those who will carry them. The chosen are not selected because they are flawless, powerful, or admired. They are chosen because they are willing to be formed, and formation, by its nature, is uncomfortable. One of the greatest misconceptions about being chosen is the assumption that it is an honor that removes struggle. In reality, it is often the opposite. Being chosen introduces struggle where others may experience ease. It brings questions where others accept simple answers. It creates tension between who a person is now and who they are being prepared to become. This is why many chosen ones spend long seasons feeling out of place. They are being shaped for environments they have not yet entered. Throughout Scripture, this pattern is unmistakable. Moses was chosen long before he ever led anyone. But before leadership came exile. Before authority came obscurity. He spent years in silence, tending sheep, far removed from the destiny that had once seemed clear. Joseph was given vision early, but the vision did not protect him from betrayal, false accusation, or imprisonment. Instead, those experiences refined his character until he could carry responsibility without corruption. The calling did not spare them from pain. It required it. This is because missions are not entrusted to unprepared hearts. Purpose without preparation destroys more than it builds. God sends chosen ones only after shaping them internally to withstand the weight of their assignment. That shaping process rarely looks impressive from the outside. It often looks like delay, like unanswered prayers, like doors closing instead of opening. Many abandon their calling at this stage, assuming resistance means they were mistaken. In truth, resistance often confirms the importance of what is being formed. Another truth rarely discussed is that chosen ones are sent not merely to do something, but to confront something. They are sent into environments where truth has been diluted, where systems operate without alignment, where people have grown comfortable with less than what they were created for. This is why chosen individuals often feel friction with the world around them. They do not fit neatly into structures that were never designed to carry what they hold. God sends chosen ones because change cannot come through systems alone. Systems preserve what already exists. Transformation requires living voices, living examples, living resistance to stagnation. Chosen ones disrupt patterns simply by being present. Their questions unsettle. Their integrity exposes compromise. Their refusal to conform challenges the unspoken rules everyone else has learned to obey. This is not rebellion for its own sake. It is alignment with something higher. It is important to understand that being chosen does not mean being constantly aware of it. In fact, many chosen individuals spend most of their early lives unaware of their role. They simply feel different. They sense that certain paths are closed to them, even when those paths look appealing. They feel drawn toward meaning, even when meaning comes with sacrifice. They struggle to explain why success without purpose feels empty, or why comfort feels like stagnation. This confusion is not a flaw, it is a signal. God sends chosen ones into every generation because every generation faces unique challenges. What worked before may no longer be sufficient. Truth must be re-articulated, courage must be remodeled, faith must be lived again, not inherited passively. Chosen ones serve as bridges between what was and what must be. They carry ancient principles into modern contexts, often paying a personal price for doing so. The process of being sent is rarely sudden. It unfolds gradually, through layers of experience that seem unrelated at the time. Loss teaches empathy. Failure builds humility. Isolation develops clarity. Delay cultivates patience. Each experience adds depth, ensuring that when the moment comes, the chosen one does not act from ego, but from understanding. Those who bypass this process may achieve influence, but not impact. If you have ever wondered why your life seems marked by intensity, why lessons come hard, why growth feels unavoidable, why complacency never fully satisfies, you are touching the edge of this truth. God does not waste suffering. He uses it, He refines through it, and He sends those who have been refined into places where refinement is desperately needed. As we move forward, it becomes essential to understand that chosen ones are not all the same. God does not send copies, He sends types, each with a different temperament, a different burden, and a different mission. Some are sent to heal, others to warn, some to break cycles, others to guard truth. Understanding this distinction is the next step in recognizing how purpose takes shape in individual lives. Because once you understand why God sends chosen ones, the next question becomes unavoidable. How do they differ from one another? And more importantly, where might you fit within that design? Long before a chosen one understands their mission, they feel its weight. This burden is not visible, and it is rarely spoken about, but it shapes everything. It is the quiet pressure carried through childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, a sense that life is heavier than it should be, even when nothing appears wrong on the surface. Many chosen individuals grow up believing this heaviness is a flaw in them, something to fix or suppress, never realizing it is evidence of something forming beneath the surface. This burden often begins early. Some feel it as an unusual sensitivity to injustice, pain, or hypocrisy. Others experience it as an awareness that feels too mature for their age. While their peers are content with simplicity, chosen ones often wrestle with questions about meaning, identity, and truth long before they are prepared to answer them. They sense that the world is not aligned, but they lack the language to explain why. This creates internal tension and awareness without clarity. As life progresses, the burden evolves. It becomes emotional weight, spiritual restlessness, or a persistent sense of being misunderstood. Chosen ones may learn to adapt outwardly, to function, to succeed, and even to smile, but inwardly, something remains unresolved. There is often a feeling of carrying responsibility without knowing for what. A quiet vigilance. A sense that they must be careful, attentive, alert, even when no immediate danger is present. This state of constant inner awareness can be exhausting, yet it feels unavoidable. One of the most isolating aspects of this burden is that it is difficult to share. When chosen individuals attempt to articulate what they feel, they are often met with confusion or dismissal. Others may interpret their depth as overthinking, negativity, or emotional intensity. Over time, many chosen ones learn to remain silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because experience has taught them that few are prepared to hear it. Silence becomes both a refuge and a prison. This isolation is not accidental. While painful, it serves a purpose. Solitude sharpens perception. It teaches discernment. It forces internal dialogue that shallow connection would interrupt. However, without understanding, this process can feel cruel. Chosen ones may wonder why they are repeatedly placed on the margins, present, but not fully integrated. In groups, they often feel like observers rather than participants. In conversations, they sense layers beneath the surface that others seem to ignore. The burden also manifests as contradiction. Chosen individuals may appear strong while feeling fragile, confident while carrying doubt, capable while feeling unprepared. This inner duality can create confusion about identity. They may ask themselves why they feel called toward purpose, yet hesitate to step forward. Why they long to serve, yet resist visibility. Why they feel drawn to impact but recoil from attention. These contradictions are not signs of inconsistency, they are signs of internal calibration. Another common aspect of this burden is heightened empathy. Chosen ones often feel the emotions of others deeply, sometimes more intensely than their own. They sense shifts in mood, unspoken pain, and emotional undercurrents in rooms they enter. While this sensitivity allows them to connect meaningfully, it also leaves them vulnerable to emotional overload. Without boundaries, they may absorb more than they can release, carrying pain that was never theirs to begin with. Many chosen individuals attempt to escape this burden by pursuing normalcy. They try to blend in, follow expected paths, and silence the inner voice that keeps asking for more. Some succeed for a time, building lives that look stable from the outside. Yet the burden never fully disappears. It resurfaces as dissatisfaction, restlessness, or a quiet sense of misalignment. Comfort becomes dull. Routine feels constraining. Success without purpose feels hollow. These are not signs of ingratitude. They are signals of divergence from alignment. It is important to understand that this burden is not punishment. It is preparation. Just as physical strength develops through resistance, spiritual and emotional capacity develop through weight. The chosen are entrusted with weight early, so they can learn how to carry it without collapsing. This process teaches humility, patience, and endurance, qualities that cannot be learned through ease. Without this formation, the mission itself would become destructive rather than redemptive. Still, many chosen ones reach points where the burden feels unbearable. They question whether they are broken, overly sensitive, or simply incompatible with the world around them. In these moments, the absence of explanation is often the most painful part. Carrying weight without context can feel like suffering without meaning. This is why recognition matters. The moment a chosen one realizes that their burden has purpose, the weight does not vanish, but it becomes bearable. As this understanding begins to form, another realization follows. Not all chosen ones carry the same burden. The weight differs because the missions differ. Some are shaped through family struggle, others through solitude. Some through betrayal, others through responsibility placed on them too early. These differences are not random. They correspond to specific roles, specific functions, specific types of calling. Understanding the hidden burden is the threshold moment. It is the point where confusion begins to turn into clarity, where suffering begins to reveal structure, and where the question shifts from "what is wrong with me" to "what am I being prepared for?" With that question in place, we can now begin to explore the distinct types of chosen ones, starting with those who are called not only to change their own lives, but to end cycles that have existed long before they were born. Cycle breakers are often born into environments marked by repetition, repeated pain, repeated mistakes, repeated patterns that seem to pass silently from one generation to the next. From an early age, they sense that something in their family line, community, or surrounding system is misaligned. Even before they understand what a cycle is, they feel its weight pressing on them. While others adapt to these patterns and accept them as normal, cycle breakers resist internally. Something within them refuses to agree that this is just how things are. This resistance usually comes at a cost. Cycle breakers are frequently misunderstood within their own families. When they question traditions, challenge behaviors, or choose a different path, they may be labeled as rebellious, ungrateful, or distant. Their desire for change is often interpreted as rejection of their roots, when in reality it is a deep response to them. They see clearly what others have learned to ignore, and that clarity creates tension long before it creates transformation. Many cycle breakers experience responsibility early in life. They may be forced to mature quickly due to instability, absence, or emotional neglect around them. While others are protected from harsh realities, cycle breakers are exposed to them. This early exposure sharpens their awareness, but also leaves scars. They learn to survive before they learn to dream. Strength becomes necessary, not optional. Yet beneath that strength, there is often grief for the childhood they never fully experienced. The mission of the cycle breaker is not limited to personal success. Their calling goes deeper. They are tasked with interrupting destructive patterns that have gone unchallenged for years, sometimes generations. These patterns may involve poverty, addiction, abuse, silence, fear, or spiritual disconnection. Ending a cycle does not mean condemning the past. It means refusing to repeat it. This distinction is difficult for others to understand, especially for those who benefit from keeping things unchanged. Because of this, cycle breakers often face resistance not from enemies, but from those closest to them. Change threatens familiarity. Growth disrupts comfort. When a cycle breaker begins to move differently, think differently, or live differently, it forces others to confront what they have normalized. This confrontation is rarely welcomed. As a result, cycle breakers may experience rejection, emotional distance, or subtle sabotage from people they hoped would support them. One of the most painful lessons for cycle breakers is realizing that love does not always equal alignment. They may love deeply those they cannot follow. They may honor people whose paths they must leave behind. This internal conflict creates guilt, confusion, and self-doubt. Many cycle breakers spend years questioning whether their desire for change is selfish or disloyal. Without understanding their role, they may shrink themselves to preserve peace, only to feel an even deeper sense of inner conflict. Spiritually, cycle breakers carry a unique burden. They are often the first in their line to ask certain questions, seek certain truths, or pursue certain forms of healing. Being first means having no blueprint. There is no one ahead of them to reassure them that the path is safe. They walk forward while others watch from behind, waiting to see if they fail. This position requires courage, even when courage feels like fear endured rather than confidence displayed. Cycle breakers are also marked by resilience. They fall, but they rise differently. Each failure teaches them what not to pass on. Each setback clarifies what must end with them. Over time, their pain becomes purposeful. What once felt like unfair suffering begins to resemble training. They learn boundaries where none existed. They learn accountability where blame once ruled. They learn responsibility without becoming controlling. These lessons are not theoretical. They are lived. It is important to understand that cycle breakers are not sent to destroy their past, but to redeem their future. Their mission is not about erasing history, but transforming trajectory. When they succeed, the change often outlives them. Children grow up safer, choices expand, silence is replaced with honesty. What once felt inevitable becomes optional. This is the quiet power of a cycle breaker's work. Yet even as they fulfill this role, many cycle breakers struggle internally with exhaustion. Carrying generational weight can feel overwhelming. They may wonder why they were chosen to carry what others avoided. why healing seems to demand so much from them. These questions are natural. But the truth is this: only those with unusual strength are trusted with such responsibility. And strength, in this context, is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to face it. As this chapter closes, it becomes clear that cycle breakers are not meant to work alone forever. Their role is foundational. They clear ground. They open paths. But other types of chosen ones are sent to build, guard, heal, and guide. Understanding these differences is essential, because not every chosen one breaks cycles loudly. Some do their work in silence, watching, discerning, and waiting for the precise moment to act. That brings us to the next type, the ones who speak less, observe more, and carry wisdom not through words but through perception. Silent observers move through the world differently. While others rush to speak, react, or assert themselves, these individuals watch. They listen. They absorb. From an early age, they learn that understanding often comes not from participation, but from attention. This does not mean they are passive or indifferent. On the contrary, their inner world is active, complex, and constantly processing what others overlook. They see patterns in behavior, inconsistencies in words, and motives hidden beneath surface-level interactions. Many silent observers grow up feeling slightly invisible. Not because they are ignored intentionally, but because their presence does not demand attention. They are often quiet in group settings, choosing restraint over noise. Teachers may describe them as reserved. Peers may assume they are shy or detached. Few recognize that silence in this case is not absence, it is discipline. Over time, the silent observer learns that speaking without clarity dilutes truth, so they wait. This waiting, however, is not without cost. Silent observers often carry the frustration of being misunderstood. Because they do not externalize their thoughts easily, others may underestimate their depth. They may be overlooked for leadership, dismissed in discussions, or treated as if they lack conviction. Internally, this creates tension. They know what they see. They know what they understand. Yet experience has taught them that not every truth should be spoken, and not every listener is prepared. One defining trait of the silent observer is discernment. They sense shifts in energy, tone, and intention before others consciously recognize them. They notice when words and actions do not align. They detect subtle changes in people's behavior that signal deeper internal movement. This ability is not learned, it is refined. It sharpens through years of observation, disappointment, and reflection. And while it often isolates them, it also protects them from deception. Emotionally, silent observers feel deeply, though they rarely display it openly. They may be profoundly affected by injustice, dishonesty, or suffering, yet express their concern quietly. This emotional containment can be mistaken for coldness. In truth, it is self-preservation. Feeling too much in a loud world requires boundaries. Silence becomes a way to maintain balance when emotions threaten to overwhelm. Spiritually, silent observers are often given insight before instruction. They intuit truths long before they encounter language to describe them. This can make formal structures, institutions, traditions, rigid belief systems feel constraining. Not because they reject truth, but because they sense when truth has been reduced to formula. As a result, silent observers may feel disconnected from environments that prioritize expression over understanding. Another burden they carry is the weight of timing. Silent observers know that truth delivered at the wrong moment can cause harm rather than clarity. This awareness makes them cautious. They wait for alignment, for the right moment, the right context, the right openness. However, waiting too long can also create regret. Many silent observers struggle with the fear of having remained silent when their voice might have mattered most. Learning when to speak becomes one of their greatest internal challenges. Despite these struggles, silent observers play a crucial role. They are often the ones who see consequences before decisions are made. They notice cracks in foundations, while others admire the surface. Their presence alone can bring stability, because they are not easily swayed by emotion or trend. When chaos erupts, they remain centered. When others panic, they analyze. This calm is not detachment, it is preparedness. In relationships, silent observers are loyal but selective. They do not give their trust easily, but when they do, it is deep and enduring. They value authenticity over intensity. Superficial connection exhausts them, while meaningful dialogue energizes them. Many experience loneliness not because they lack relationships, but because few connections reach the depth they require to feel understood. The mission of the silent observer is often revealed later in life. While others may step into visible roles early, silent observers are refined over time. Their calling requires maturity, patience, and clarity. When they finally speak, their words carry weight precisely because they have not been wasted. When they act, it is deliberate, not reactive. Their influence is subtle but lasting. It is important to recognize that silence does not mean insignificance. Many pivotal shifts occur because someone noticed what others ignored. Silent observers guard truth until it is ready to be released. They protect wisdom from being diluted. They remind the world that depth cannot be rushed, and understanding cannot be forced. As this chapter closes, it becomes clear that while some chosen ones are called to observe and discern, others are shaped through pain so they can restore what has been broken. These individuals carry wounds not as weaknesses, but as credentials. They know suffering from the inside, and because of that, they are uniquely equipped to guide others through it. That is where we turn next, to the ones whose deepest scars become their greatest instruments. The wounded healer carries a paradox that shapes their entire existence. They are marked by pain, yet drawn toward restoration. Their life story is often defined by experiences they never asked for: loss, betrayal, rejection, or deep emotional wounds that arrived early and stayed long. While others may see these wounds as disadvantages, the truth is far more complex. For the wounded healer, suffering becomes the very place where calling takes root. Unlike those who observe pain from a distance, the wounded healer knows it intimately. They have felt confusion when answers never came, abandonment when support was expected, and grief that lingered far beyond its season. These experiences carve depth into them. They learn what it means to endure rather than escape. And in that endurance, something unusual develops: compassion that is not theoretical but lived. Many wounded healers spend years trying to outrun their pain. They may attempt to redefine themselves by achievement, relationships, or service, believing that usefulness will quiet what hurts. For a time, this works. They become reliable, strong, and dependable. Others lean on them, unaware that the healer is still healing themselves. Over time, however, unresolved wounds begin to surface. Exhaustion sets in. Emotional burnout follows. The wounded healer realizes that ignoring pain does not transform it. It only delays its influence. One of the defining struggles of the wounded healer is boundary confusion. Because they know what it means to suffer, they are often drawn to those who are hurting. They listen when others turn away. They stay when others leave. This generosity of presence can become overwhelming. Without discernment, they may give more than they can sustain, mistaking self-sacrifice for purpose. Learning where compassion ends and self-erasure begins is one of their most difficult lessons. Emotionally, wounded healers often carry a heightened sensitivity to pain, both their own and that of others. They can sense emotional fractures quickly, sometimes before a word is spoken. This awareness allows them to connect deeply, but it also leaves them vulnerable. They may relive their own wounds through the stories of others. Without healing, Empathy can reopen scars rather than close them. Spiritually, the wounded healer is shaped by questions rather than certainty. Their faith, whatever form it takes, is rarely simplistic. They have wrestled with silence, disappointment, and unanswered prayers. This wrestling refines them. It strips away superficial belief and replaces it with resilience. They do not offer comfort through cliches, but through presence. They know that healing is not about fixing everything. It is about walking with someone through what cannot be fixed yet. A crucial turning point for the wounded healer occurs when they confront their own pain honestly. This moment is rarely dramatic. It often arrives quietly, through exhaustion or realization. They recognize that their wounds are not obstacles to their calling, but gateways. Healing does not erase the past, it integrates it. As they learn to tend to their own wounds, they discover that healing is not linear. It is cyclical, layered, and ongoing. Once this integration begins, the wounded healer's influence changes. They no longer heal from a place of compulsion, but from wholeness in progress. Their presence becomes stabilizing rather than draining. They offer insight without superiority, understanding without judgment. People feel safe around them, not because the healer has all the answers, but because they are not threatened by pain. It is important to note that wounded healers are not called to heal everyone. This realization often brings relief. Their mission is not limitless, it is specific. They are drawn to certain types of pain because those pains mirror their own journey. In these moments, healing flows naturally, without force. What once felt like a curse becomes alignment. The cost of this calling, however, remains real. Wounded healers must continually choose self-awareness over self-neglect. They must resist the urge to define their worth by how much they give. This discipline is not selfish, it is necessary. A healer who ignores their own wounds eventually transmits them rather than resolves them. When the wounded healer walks in alignment, their impact extends quietly but deeply. Lives are changed not through dramatic intervention, but through sustained presence. They remind others that pain does not disqualify purpose, that brokenness, when tended with honesty, becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. As this chapter comes to a close, another truth emerges. Not all chosen ones are called to heal gently. Some are shaped to confront, disrupt, and dismantle what no longer serves truth. Their role is not to soothe discomfort, but to expose it. These individuals often face resistance precisely because their presence challenges stability built on illusion. That leads us to the next type, the ones whose calling is to disrupt false order so that something truer can take its place. The disruptor is often misunderstood, long before they are understood. Their presence alone creates tension, not because they seek conflict, but because they reveal what others work hard to conceal. Wherever systems have grown rigid, where traditions are preserved without truth, or where comfort has replaced integrity, the disruptor begins to feel restless. They sense misalignment instinctively. What others call normal, they experience as unstable. What others defend as tradition, they recognize as stagnation. From an early age, disruptors tend to ask questions that unsettle authority. Not out of defiance, but out of clarity. They notice contradictions in systems that claim one thing while producing another. When rules exist without reason, when leaders demand loyalty without accountability, or when structures prioritize image over substance, the disruptor feels compelled to challenge them. This impulse is rarely celebrated. More often it is labeled as troublemaking, arrogance, or lack of respect. Because of this, disruptors frequently experience rejection. They are pushed to the margins, excluded from inner circles, or quietly resisted by those in power. Yet rejection does not silence them, it sharpens them. Over time, they learn that approval is rarely aligned with truth. This realization costs them belonging, but it grants them freedom. Once they stop seeking validation from systems they were never meant to fit into, their clarity deepens. Emotionally, the disruptor carries a unique burden. They are often torn between the desire for harmony and the necessity of confrontation. They understand the cost of disruption. They know that change creates discomfort, uncertainty, and resistance. Yet remaining silent feels like complicity. This internal conflict can lead to exhaustion, self-doubt, and isolation. Many disruptors question whether their presence causes more harm than good, especially when backlash follows honesty. Spiritually, disruptors are shaped by fire rather than affirmation. Their convictions are forged through conflict, not consensus. They learn early that truth is rarely welcomed when it threatens comfort. This understanding forces them to anchor their identity internally rather than socially. They must know why they stand, because few will stand with them. Their faith, whatever form it takes, becomes resilient, stripped of illusion, grounded in principle rather than popularity. One of the greatest challenges for the disruptor is timing. Speaking truth too early can isolate them before change is possible. Speaking too late allows dysfunction to deepen. Learning when to confront and when to observe requires maturity. Many disruptors make mistakes early, pushing against resistance without strategy. These failures are part of their refinement. Over time, they learn that disruption is most effective when it is precise rather than explosive. The mission of the disruptor is not destruction for its own sake. Their role is to expose false stability. Systems often appear strong because they have never been challenged. The disruptor applies pressure, revealing cracks that were already present. This exposure is uncomfortable but necessary. Without it, decay remains hidden. Renewal becomes impossible. Disruptors often initiate change they will never benefit from personally. They clear paths others will walk later. This can feel deeply unfair. They face opposition, lose opportunities, and endure criticism, only to watch others step into environments that are healthier because of their sacrifice. Accepting this reality requires humility and long-term vision. The disruptor must understand that impact is not always immediate, and credit is not always assigned accurately. When aligned, the disruptor's presence becomes catalytic. Conversations shift. Assumptions are questioned. Integrity is restored not through force, but through exposure. Their courage invites others to examine what they have tolerated. Though not everyone responds positively, the environment is never the same once truth has been spoken. As this chapter closes, another type of chosen one comes into focus. Where disruptors challenge systems from the outside, others are called to stand guard from within. They are not sent to dismantle, but to preserve. Their role is not confrontation, but protection, holding truth steady when it is most vulnerable. That leads us to the next calling, those entrusted with guarding faith itself. The guardian of faith is shaped by responsibility long before recognition. While others move freely between beliefs, ideas, and convictions, these individuals feel an internal weight pressing them toward consistency and truth. They sense, often without being taught, that certain principles must be protected, not debated casually, not adjusted for convenience, preserved. This calling does not come with applause. It comes with vigilance. From early on, guardians of faith develop a deep awareness of what is sacred to them. This does not always appear as rigid belief, but as reverence. They instinctively resist dilution of truth, of values, of meaning. When they encounter environments where belief is treated lightly or manipulated for personal gain, something within them reacts. Not loudly, but firmly. They feel compelled to hold the line, even when standing alone. This sense of guardianship can feel isolating. Guardians of faith often find themselves surrounded by people who want comfort more than conviction. In such spaces, depth can be unwelcome. Questions that challenge sincerity may be avoided. Guardians quickly learn that protecting truth sometimes means losing social ease. They may be perceived as intense, uncompromising, or overly serious, when in reality they are simply unwilling to treat what matters as disposable. Emotionally, this role carries weight. Guardians of faith often feel responsible for more than themselves. They sense the fragility of belief in others and feel compelled to stand firm when others waver. This can lead to exhaustion. Holding ground during seasons of doubt, both personal and collective, requires endurance. Guardians may privately wrestle with uncertainty while publicly remaining steady. This tension between internal struggle and external strength is one of their defining challenges. Spiritually, guardians of faith are forged through testing rather than reassurance. Their beliefs are not inherited comfortably. They are examined under pressure. Doubt does not destroy them. It refines them. They question deeply, not to abandon faith, but to ensure it is real. Over time, what remains is not blind belief, but resilient conviction. They do not believe because it is easy. They believe because they have examined alternatives and found them insufficient. Another burden guardians carry is discernment. They sense when truth is being subtly distorted, when language is softened, when principles are compromised gradually rather than outright denied. This awareness makes them sensitive to shifts others ignore. While this discernment protects integrity, it can also create frustration. Speaking out too often leads to resistance. Remaining silent can feel like betrayal. Learning when to guard quietly and when to speak openly becomes an ongoing internal negotiation. Guardians of faith are rarely drawn to attention. Their role is not performance, but preservation. They are comfortable operating behind the scenes, strengthening foundations others stand upon without noticing. They pray when others doubt. They remain consistent when others fluctuate. They endure seasons where their faith feels heavy, not uplifting. Yet they persist because they understand that faith is not always felt. It is carried. One of the most difficult lessons for guardians is accepting that they cannot carry faith for everyone indefinitely. They may feel responsible for keeping belief alive in families, communities, or institutions, even when others disengage. Over time, they must learn boundaries. Faith guarded without rest becomes burden rather than calling. The guardian's role is to protect truth, not replace personal responsibility in others. When guardians of faith are aligned, their presence stabilizes environments. They do not force belief, but they anchor it. In times of confusion, they provide clarity. In moments of fear, they remain steady. Their consistency becomes a reference point others return to when certainty collapses. Though they may not be visible leaders, their influence is foundational. It is important to recognize that guardians of faith are not inflexible by nature. They are adaptable where growth is genuine, but immovable where compromise threatens integrity. This balance is misunderstood by many, yet without such guardians, truth erodes quietly, not through attack, but through neglect. As this chapter closes, a different kind of calling comes into focus. While guardians stand firm within belief, others are shaped through solitude itself. They are not called to protect structures or systems, but to walk paths that require independence, self-reliance, and internal clarity. Their preparation happens away from crowds, away from affirmation, away from noise. These are the ones whose journey unfolds largely alone. The next type we must understand. The lone walker's path is marked by distance, not always physical, but deeply internal. Even when surrounded by people, they often feel set apart, as if moving to a different rhythm. This separation is not the result of arrogance or rejection of others. It is a function of calling. The lone walker is shaped through solitude because their mission demands clarity that cannot be borrowed from consensus or sustained by constant affirmation. From an early stage, lone walkers experience a sense of independence that feels imposed rather than chosen. Circumstances often require them to rely on themselves sooner than expected. Support may be inconsistent, guidance may be limited. As a result, they learn to navigate uncertainty alone. This early self-reliance builds strength, but it also plants questions. Why does connection feel temporary? Why does belonging feel conditional? These questions linger, shaping their inner world. Emotionally, the lone walker carries both resilience and longing. They adapt well to isolation, yet they do not prefer it. They are capable of standing alone, but they feel the cost of doing so. Over time, this duality refines them. They learn to sit with their thoughts, to confront fears without distraction, and to make decisions without external validation. While this process can feel harsh, it develops an inner compass that rarely wavers. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the lone walker is their distance. Others may interpret it as detachment or disinterest. In reality, lone walkers often feel deeply. They simply process inwardly. They are cautious with trust because experience has taught them that not all companionship is stable. Rather than scattering themselves across many connections, they invest selectively, valuing depth over frequency. This selectivity protects them, but it also reinforces their solitude. Spiritually, lone walkers are refined in quiet places. Their growth does not come from crowds, trends, or shared enthusiasm. It comes from stillness, from reflection, from wrestling privately with doubt, fear, and conviction. This internal work produces authenticity. When a lone walker commits to a belief or direction, it is not because it was popular or encouraged, but because it was tested internally and found true. There are seasons when the lone walker questions their path intensely. They may wonder why collaboration feels difficult, why alignment with groups rarely lasts, or why their journey seems slower and more demanding than others. In these moments, comparison becomes a temptation. Yet comparison only obscures their purpose. The lone walker is not delayed, they are being deepened. Their preparation cannot be rushed because it must be internalized fully. A defining lesson for the lone walker is learning the difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is purposeful and strengthening. Isolation is draining and disorienting. Early in life, these two often blur. Lone walkers may endure isolation without understanding its purpose, leading to discouragement. Over time, as awareness grows, solitude becomes chosen rather than endured. This shift transforms loneliness into clarity. The mission of the lone walker often requires decisive action without support. They are sent into spaces where group consensus is unavailable or unreliable. Their clarity allows them to move when others hesitate. Their independence allows them to stand when others withdraw. While this role can feel thankless, it is essential. Progress often begins with individuals willing to step forward alone. Despite their independence, lone walkers are not meant to remain isolated indefinitely. Their solitude is preparatory, not permanent. Eventually, they encounter connections that resonate rather than drain. When alignment occurs, it is profound. These relationships are built on mutual respect, shared values, and authenticity. The lone walker does not seek many such connections, but they recognize them immediately when they appear. When aligned with their calling, lone walkers bring stability to uncertain environments. Their presence communicates confidence without noise. They do not react impulsively. They do not require constant reassurance. This steadiness influences others subtly, offering a model of grounded independence. People may not understand their journey, but they respect the clarity it produces. As this chapter closes, another calling emerges, one that requires connection rather than solitude. While lone walkers are shaped through separation, others are designed to unite what has been divided. Their challenge is not standing alone, but standing between. That brings us to the next type, those whose mission is to build bridges where separation once seemed permanent. The bridge builder carries a calling that operates in tension. They are sent into spaces marked by division between people, ideas, generations, beliefs, or wounds, and asked to stand in the middle. Not to choose sides impulsively, not to erase differences, but to create connection where understanding has collapsed. This role is subtle, demanding, and often emotionally taxing because it requires strength without domination and empathy without compromise. From an early stage, bridge builders demonstrate an unusual sensitivity to conflict. They perceive fractures others overlook. Where most see disagreement, they sense unresolved pain beneath the surface. This awareness draws them into situations they did not create, but feel compelled to address. Often they become mediators naturally, even without formal authority. People confide in them. Perspectives converge around them. Yet this position rarely comes with appreciation. Emotionally, bridge builders live with contradiction. They are capable of holding multiple viewpoints simultaneously, which allows them to understand complexity, but can also create inner strain. They often feel misunderstood themselves because their refusal to polarize is mistaken for indecision. In reality, bridge builders are decisive, but their decisions are informed by depth rather than impulse. They see beyond immediate reactions and consider long-term impact. One of the earliest challenges bridge builders face is exhaustion. Constantly navigating emotional terrain drains energy. They may absorb tensions not meant for them. When boundaries are weak, they become overextended, attempting to reconcile issues beyond their responsibility. Learning discernment, when to engage and when to step back, is a critical milestone in their development. Without it, the calling becomes a burden rather than a mission. Spiritually, bridge builders are shaped through compassion refined by truth. They are not sent to smooth over conflict with empty reassurance. Their role is not to avoid discomfort, but to guide others through it constructively. This requires integrity. They must remain anchored in core values while listening openly. When done well, this balance allows healing without eroding conviction. Bridge builders often struggle with belonging because they operate between groups rather than within a single identity. They may feel they never fully fit anywhere. This can lead to internal questioning. Where do I belong if I am always in the middle? Over time, they learn that their position is not a lack of identity, it is their identity. They are designed to function at intersections, not extremes. Another defining aspect of the bridge builder is patience. Reconciliation is rarely immediate. Progress comes in increments, setbacks included. Bridge builders must resist the urge to force resolution. They learn that sustainable unity cannot be rushed. It must be chosen freely by all parties involved. Their role is to facilitate understanding, not impose agreement. When aligned with their mission, bridge builders create environments where dialogue becomes possible again. They restore communication where silence once prevailed. They translate perspectives without distortion. In doing so, they prevent fractures from hardening into permanent division. Their work often goes unnoticed publicly, but its effects ripple quietly and persistently. There are moments when bridge builders feel deeply discouraged, when efforts fail, when conflict persists, when peace seems unreachable. In these moments, they must remember that not every bridge is crossed immediately. Some are built for future use. Their obedience lies in construction, not outcome. As this chapter concludes, a different calling begins to emerge. While bridge builders connect what is divided, others are sent to confront what has been hidden. Their mission is not reconciliation, but exposure, not comfort, but awakening. These are the ones tasked with revealing truth that many would rather avoid. The next type we must examine: Bridge builders often struggle with belonging. Because they operate between groups rather than within a single identity, they may feel they never fully fit anywhere. This can lead to internal questioning. Where do I belong if I am always in the middle? Over time, they learn that their position is not a lack of identity, it is their identity. They are designed to function at intersections, not extremes. Another defining aspect of the bridge builder is patience. Reconciliation is rarely immediate. Progress comes in increments, setbacks included. Bridge builders must resist the urge to force resolution. They learn that sustainable unity cannot be rushed. It must be chosen freely by all parties involved. Their role is to facilitate understanding, not impose agreement. When aligned with their mission, bridge builders create environments where dialogue becomes possible again. They restore communication where silence once prevailed. They translate perspectives without distortion. In doing so, they prevent fractures from hardening into permanent division. Their work often goes unnoticed publicly, but its effects ripple quietly and persistently. There are moments when bridge builders feel deeply discouraged, when efforts fail, when conflict persists, when peace seems unreachable. In these moments, they must remember that not every bridge is crossed immediately. Some are built for future use. Their obedience lies in construction, not outcome. As this chapter concludes, a different calling begins to emerge. While bridge builders connect what is divided, others are sent to confront what has been hidden. Their mission is not reconciliation, but exposure, not comfort, but awakening. These are the ones tasked with revealing truth that many would rather avoid. The next type we must examine. The truth revealer carries a calling that is often unwelcome before it is understood. They are sent not to affirm what is comfortable, but to expose what is concealed. Their presence disrupts illusions, challenges narratives, and brings clarity where denial has been allowed to grow. This role is not aggressive by nature, yet it is frequently perceived as confrontational because truth, when revealed, unsettles environments built on avoidance. From an early stage, truth revealers demonstrate an unusual intolerance for inconsistency. They sense when words and actions do not align, when explanations feel incomplete, when silence hides something unresolved. This sensitivity does not make them suspicious. It makes them perceptive. They notice patterns others dismiss and ask questions others avoid. Often, this places them at odds with systems that rely on appearance rather than substance. Emotionally, truth revealers carry a heavy internal burden. They are deeply aware that revealing truth can cost them approval, relationships, and security. Despite this, remaining silent feels like a deeper betrayal. This internal conflict shapes their character. They learn early that obedience to truth often requires personal sacrifice. Over time, this produces courage, not reckless boldness, but disciplined resolve. One of the greatest challenges truth revealers face is timing. Truth delivered without wisdom can wound rather than heal. Delivered too late, it loses power. They must develop discernment, not only of what is true, but of when and how it should be spoken. This discernment is forged through experience, often painful. Early missteps teach restraint. Failures teach humility. Together, these lessons refine their voice. Spiritually, truth revealers are refined through opposition. Resistance sharpens their clarity. Criticism forces self-examination. They are repeatedly pressed to confirm whether they speak from ego or conviction. Over time, this pressure strips away personal agendas, leaving only what is essential. When they speak from this place, their words carry weight, not because of volume, but because of alignment.
It's also crucial to address a common misconception. Being chosen does not mean being exempt from struggle. In many cases, it guarantees the opposite. Growth requires friction. Depth requires weight. Clarity requires confrontation. Those entrusted with impact are refined through challenge because their influence must be stable under pressure. Ease does not produce endurance. If you recognized yourself in one or more of these types, the next step is not declaration, but discernment. Calling is not proven through words, but through response. How you act when challenged, how you choose when unseen, how you carry responsibility when no reward is immediate. Purpose is revealed in consistency, not announcement. Another important distinction must be made. Recognition is internal before it is external. Many wait for confirmation from others before stepping into responsibility, yet most callings begin privately. Obedience precedes acknowledgement. Alignment precedes opportunity. Those who wait for permission often delay preparation. Those who respond internally are ready when opportunity arrives. There is also freedom in understanding that not everyone shares the same assignment. Comparison dissolves when clarity emerges. A watcher is not failing because they are not building. A builder is not lacking because they are not revealing. Each function serves the whole. Misalignment occurs when individuals attempt to carry roles not assigned to them, often driven by expectation rather than conviction. As this narrative closes, the most important question remains deeply personal. What are you being asked to carry, protect, confront, connect, or endure right now? Calling is not abstract, it is present. It exists in the responsibilities already placed before you. Purpose rarely arrives fully formed. It unfolds as response meets readiness. If you feel the weight of this question, that too is significant. Indifference does not accompany calling. Awareness does. Responsibility does. Reflection does. Whatever role resonates most strongly, understand this. Recognition is not the destination. Alignment is, and alignment is lived daily, quietly, consistently. This story was never meant to tell you who you are. It was meant to help you notice what has been forming all along, and what you do with that recognition. That is where the real journey begins.